following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to another episode of Speaking with the Senator. I'm Senator Kevin Avard, and normally I don't do a monologue, but just wanted to let people know that this show really is for you. It's for you locally. It's for you to get your voice out. It's for you to communicate with those who represent you at the Capitol. And when everybody's so separated, it's hard to get in contact with people. And so we want to let you know that this show's available for you. You're welcome to come on the show, whether you're a small business, whether you're an activist. I don't ask you what your party affiliation is. I never do. And I just want to let you know we're available for you. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about the schools, and parents are becoming more and more vocal as to what's going on. I'm noticing lately that the temperature's starting to rise. People are asking some serious questions. I just saw one today. Why, again, aren't the kids back in school in Nashua on Fridays? Why don't they go? And I really don't have the answer for that specifically, but we're here to help you get that message out. And if you're a parent and you want to have a voice, you can come on the show as well. And so with that little introduction, I just want to introduce my guest, Alicia Houston. I don't know if you're related to Sam Houston, but...
no, unfortunately.
Anyway, I want to welcome you to the show.
Awesome.
And thank you for coming on. I know that you're engaged in a lot of the things that are happening locally with regards to the school. I know there's a Facebook page, which is...
Nashua Parent Voice.
Nashua Parent Voice.
Yes.
Now, it's a nonpartisan, correct?
Yes.
Right. So we have no idea who's on it other than the fact that they're just parents.
They're parents. That's what we have in common.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to start by saying thank you for allowing me to come on.
Sure.
But you're right. So we have created this really great group of parents. It started, back in the summertime when we realized that the kids were not going to end up going back to school in the fall. So a bunch of parents got together and we decided that, we really needed to find a way to meet in the middle so that given the current circumstances with the pandemic and understanding that safety is incredibly paramount, we have immune-compromised students, we have immune-compromised families, teachers, administrators. So our goal was to collaborate together and create a level of transparency so that we could try to work with the administration and the school district to come up with a collective solution, because we didn't want to be complaining without any type of constructive ways that we could correct the problem, because otherwise it would have just been complaining. So it's 1,000 plus members, and it grows every day.
I was going to ask you, how many members are there?
Yeah, so there's
Are they all Nashua?
They're over 1,000, so you have to be a Nashua parent in order to participate. But you're absolutely right. The party affiliations have never been important. And I would like to say that as a group and with the administrators and being a moderator myself, we've done a really great job at keeping it not political.
Right.
Because when you talk about kids and you talk about what's best for kids in the community, you have to take it as a whole. Each individual child of the 11,000 is an individual.
Right.
And learning is so different for everyone. So we understand that there's people that are really thriving in remote, and we absolutely want remote as an option for all of the students who need it and the teachers that need it. But there are other populations that remote doesn't work.
Oh, I'm seeing that a lot actually, and I know that the kids across the spectrum, some of them are really struggling with it, and they need that personal connection,
Mhm.
and it's not boding well with them. We know that some seniors are having a difficult time, even the advanced students. I
Mhm.
just happen to know one, and you know they're doing okay. They're getting by, but it's not working super well. I mean, there are some really down times, and so one of the reasons I asked you to come on the show, and I wanted you to have a voice. I wanted to give it
Yeah.
some airtime, but there was a particular message that was sent to the governor's office, and it had to do with the recent decision of the Board of Education to extend this period uh, of remote learning rather than in a hybrid. Is that what it was?
Yeah, a hybrid. So the extension of the remote learning and the way that the Board of Ed had worded it is that we have to meet two of the metrics from the Department of Public Health in Nashua in
Mhm.
order for our children. I don't know the exact numbers; are literally my least favorite thing on planet Earth.
Sure.
But we have to meet two of those metrics. So all of the kids, with the exception of our intensive needs special ed students, not all of them, but some of them, have been able to return to in-person, but we don't have an option for the other kids to go back to school. It has never been an option to include these kids who are not thriving in remote learning. You're right, there are students in accelerated programs that we're watching them fall apart. The mental health issues that we're starting to see with the depression and
Mhm.
the anxiety and the isolation. Children are not designed to be isolated,
Right.
and we learn best in situations like this where we're one-on-one, we're learning each other, we're reading each other's body language, and those are really important skills.
That's
For
part of communication.
I agree
Yep.
100%. That's part of learning. That's
Mhm.
how we learn people and learn how to effectively communicate. And at the lower levels, especially with our kindergarten, our first graders, our second and third, they're not going to have the opportunity because none of these kids have even met their teachers yet. And that speaks volumes
Right.
because rapport building and having that connection is so important. And we've taken that away. I understand, there's teachers that have legitimate reasons why they don't want to return to school. And we as a whole want remote as an option. We have people in the group that, their children are not able to go back to school, but they are able to kind of walk this gray area that not a lot of us can walk right now because of our, the climate and in society, really.
Yeah, I remember when Senator Daniels was introducing the virtual learning,
Mhm.
and everybody was thinking, well, we're not really sure that's going to work. And wow, this is like this was totally unintended, obviously, but that's how we're at right now. And it's amazing how the tide has switched so quickly. But I do think that there are some kids that are falling apart. I wanted to ask you a question about this whole. Why is Friday a day off?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. To my knowledge, it is being used as part of the instructional hours because teachers are available for extra help during those times. But as far as a clear-cut answer as to why the children are not in school, I don't have an answer. I wish that I did.
Mhm.
And that was part of the other purpose of the group, is to find the answers and give transparency that didn't exist before, because there shouldn't be questions like that. There should be a clear, concise answer
Is there
to that.
a Facebook website or a website or a Facebook page that the school puts out? I know Jean Inzarello, she helps out with communicating certain things that are happening locally, but officially, I don't know if that's the official Facebook page.
Yeah, so the Nashua School District has done, a relatively great job.
Mhm.
I'm not knocking anything that they've done with communicating. A lot of the emails that we get from the Nashua School District are sent out to the parents and the students. And you can always go onto the website. That's usually where we're referred to.
Mhm.
As far as Facebook, I don't necessarily know that there's a lot of Facebook activity. There's, PTO groups that you can
Okay,
join.
maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, and there's, offshoots of, we have Nashua's Civic Sounding Board and the Civic Sounding Board 2.0. But I mean, social media is really hard to mix with education because you really have to be cognizant of the information that you're putting out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, what are some of the things that you're hoping to see in what is the group on Facebook looking for right now? What are some of the what do you want from the governor's office? What do you want from Mr. Mosley or the mayor? You know, what's on the top agenda here?
So, as a whole, we would really love to see our kids go back to school, not full time. And I know that there's some misconceptions that, here's this group and they want the schools to reopen and that's it. And they're going to put everybody at risk. And that is not what we're about. We are about creating an opportunity for the other part of the population that isn't doing well in remote learning and not
Right.
thriving. So I think that what I would like to see happen, and I can't speak wholly on behalf of the group, but I would say that the general consensus is we would like to see a hybrid option at a minimum.
Right.
All of the other districts around us have been able to facilitate that.
I know Hollis is doing it. There are
yeah.
others, and I know there was one person who was part of your group. They actually leaving Nashua to move to Hollis so that their kids can go to school.
You are actually going to see a lot more of that, unfortunately.
Right. And
A lot of people are very upset, and not just with the education system as a whole, but looking at the standard issues, the economic issues. Our taxes increased this year, again for education, and not for nothing, but we have multiple buildings that are sitting vacant. And we still have to pay for the utilities and all of
I know some of the
those.
charter schools are asking maybe possibly to use those facilities while they're being unused. I mean, the charter schools are a public school.
Yep.
I believe the charter schools are still fully operational.
There's a lot of them within Nashua.
There's the Micro Society, and I believe the Science.
World Academy is
Yep.
another one. There are options, but I think one of the biggest parts of the group is there are families that can't use those options.
Right.
There are families we can't afford to pull our kids out of the public school system, and that's the reason why we have a public school system, is to make sure that all kids have a fair and equal education. And I think that we are doing a disservice to our kids.
How are they being able to determine which children are falling behind? The kids that are not excelling or that are basically falling out of, obviously because of the remote learning, they're not functioning at full capacity, and that includes the advanced kids. Is there a way to determine which kids need to go back or not? I mean, are they falling off planet Earth? What's going on? How are we able to determine who needs it and who doesn't?
So that would be a great question for the Nashua School District. Unfortunately, there's a lot of questions that we have that have remained unanswered. As far as the metrics for tracking and making sure we're meeting the instructional hours, making sure that the attendance is being adhered to, that the students are learning, and not just learning as far as like you and I sitting and you talking at me for 45 minutes. But I don't know what the parameters are for the metrics to measure.
Are they responsive to the parents? Are they the Board of Education? Are they doing a good job?
Oof, that is.
Are they meeting the needs of the people?
No.
Are there a lot of unanswered questions?
Yes.
Right. What are some of the examples of questions that are not being answered?
So some of the questions that are not being answered is the Emergency Order 64 was put into place, from my understanding and many others, to help encourage and add an option to get children back in school that met certain criteria. The way that it had been proposed to us was not necessarily a clear and concise option. They needed to meet certain special education requirements, and a lot of these children didn't meet those. So that was one of the unanswered questions: is what about the children that have these accommodations that require in person. I can't prompt you, Kevin, to, stay focused and not jump on the couch or be rolling on the floor or taking the video camera and showing you my dogs, or
Right. Or hit the mute button and have the radio blasting. Right?
exactly. Yeah, you've clearly experienced remote learning at some capacity.
Well, not necessarily remote learning, but we have some Senate hearings where gel card today, and actually, I'm kidding. I didn't play any music, but you can mute if the cat is crying or if the dog is barking, and so that mute button becomes very handy if if you want to be distracted.
Yeah.
I'm sure the teacher can't stop every lesson to say, put your mute button back on, or I want to hear you, or if there are distractions in the background, then it's distracting the other kids. So obviously,
it's hard.
yeah.
And I think that that's one of the unanswered questions is how are we going to facilitate, these accommodations, right? So if one of the accommodations is you can't learn with someone just talking at you and
Right.
you need to be prompted because you are easily distracted, how are we re-engaging those students? Are we doing it to our full capacity? Are there other areas that we can look into that we haven't quite done? So I would say, are they doing a good job is a hard question to answer.
There's no way to figure it out. There's no way to know.
There's no way to measure it.
Right.
And the measurability of it is going to be one of the biggest pieces.
I remember years ago when there was this anti-homeschooling campaign that was out there, and they were talking about the value of the socialization with the kids. Well, here we go. So a lot of these kids are staying home. Where's the big push to get these kids back into school? I understand we have this situation, but it would help the parents immensely if they knew that there was an organization out there, a government agency that is actually working its hardest to get these kids back into school,
And
to show some progress and steps leading to progress.
Mhm.
So there is an election coming up,
There sure is.
and do you know of any candidates that are running for school board?
I know of a few that have kind of raised their hands. I always laugh because I say they volunteered as tribute to make a difference and make a change. As far as whether or not they will actually do that, remains to be seen. But there are 4 seats coming up for election for Board of Education.
Which is a very, very important public service. If you get engaged in that, and if people are not satisfied with your local property taxes, if you're not satisfied with the cost of education, if you're not satisfied with your children's education, it's incumbent upon people to consider running. There are people that get very comfortable, and it's okay to give them a nudge. I got kicked out of office. I'm back in, but we tried. We're here for public service. We're not here because it's a title. And we need results. And from what I'm gathering, there isn't a satisfactory result right now that is going on. And as you said, there's 1,000 people in this space.
There's over 1,000. I meant to check before I came on, and then I got nervous because I was like, oh my gosh. But there's over 1,000, and
And the general consensus is everybody's doing a great job, or there needs some improvement.
The general consensus is very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's because I don't think that at this stage in the game, we're only thinking about whether or not people are or are not doing their job. There's a level of humanity that's there. We still have children that have not received Chromebooks.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So from September to now, those children have not been learning. We're doing a disservice to the children. If you contact DCYF, don't quote me, call them. The child abuse cases have dropped. Who are the mandated reporters? Those are the teachers in school. There's a lot of kids that essentially, again, I don't know what the attendance checks look like. I don't know who's, tracking to see where these children are. And that, as a community member, that should raise some eyebrows. But I think that we, as a group, want to see change because you're right. It's not about the title. And I would be honest if I said I wasn't somewhat ignorant to, how important and the significance of local government until right now. In this moment, we're learning, and it's a really unfortunate set of circumstances. But that's why it is so important for people to volunteer, to run, to fill these spots if they think that they can make an improvement.
But people have to be asking the question, why is Hollis working and we're not? Why are other towns working and we're not?
All the time.
Why are our taxes going up and our kids are not? Our children need to be learning. Why are they not? And who is in charge of this? Who is the one that is responsible for letting these kids fall behind? And this is going to have a ripple effect in our society if we don't make some changes. And it's got to be quick, because you're paying a high price for this, and they're paying a high price for not being educated. We have kids. We have a senior that's going to college, and she's taken some advanced classes. She's taken some, and she wants the education. I know some younger kids in other towns that they do have the hybrid and smart kids, but they're not being challenged. They're not being pushed. That needs to be addressed. This has to stop. This has to work, and people have to be at least visibly engaged in trying to make it work, communicating to the parents. And I think that's one of the things that we as public servants need to be good at, and we're trying to. You can't obviously reach out to everybody. It's impossible. But there needs to be some visibility, with the community. And the Board of Education, it's time for them to take notice. Is anybody on the Board of Ed in that particular program? And are there kids in school?
So that's a great question. It's kind of like a rumor mill. I haven't personally looked into it because, I've been trying to remote teach my children and wrangle dogs.
Well,
and
this
do
way they
my
would have
stuff.
skin in the game, right?
I agree. So I know that one of the board members, I believe Ray, had a senior last year. So he at that stage in time had a dog in the fight is the best way to put it. I know that there are other members of the board that have children, whether or not they are children in the school district or in a charter school or private school. How they choose to educate their children is honestly not.
It's nobody's business.
Yeah,
but
it's
it would
not
be,
my concern. But I agree with you. I think that there is a level of difference between being able to advocate and say this could be best for the kids. But one of the things in an article that I actually wrote, it was in the Granite Grok. It was an open letter to the Nashua Teachers Union, the Board of Ed.
Granite Grok, is that
Granite Grok?
Okay.
I could give you the exact web address, but it's available online.
Sure.
And basically, we summed it up as a whole, or at least I did, as Nashua's drowning. We are drowning. Our ship is sinking. Every day that these kids are out of school is another day that they've lost to learning. It's another day that they're behind their peers. You think long term, like you said, this is going to have a ripple effect.
It really will.
They're a year behind their peers, so that's going to impact especially the juniors and seniors, where it's such a critical time for them, and our younger grades. One of the biggest pushes that we've made is our seniors. Our seniors need to be back in school. There are so many rites of passage, regardless of the time period.
You speaking of rites of passage, just an aside ripple effect. I don't know if you ever heard of Olga's bridal place.
No.
She's up on Amherst Street. Because there was no proms, a ton of her business is gone, and very, very small business. She's done thousands of alterations in this town over the years, and she's been in part of a ton of proms. Well, there's no proms. Well, there wasn't a prom last year, and now doesn't look like there's going to be a prom this year. So that's a little ripple effect. It's affecting the kids, but it's also affecting the economy.
Yes.
And the ripple just continues if it affects a small business like her. And if she goes out of business, then it just. But as far as a rite of passage, it's something that you can't get back.
No.
Think
back to when you were in high school.
Yeah.
Anybody that's watching this, I would encourage you to to think, I mean, think back to when you were in high school. What are the things you remember? You don't remember, your classes or any of that stuff. You remember
I remember a few of them.
I remember a couple. I'm going to choose not to remember most of them.
I'm sure my teachers in the younger probably didn't want me to remember me.
Stubborn and opinionated, right? It's a skill that you have to tame, but you don't want to tame out of them.
Sure. That's being kind.
But you think about, senior prom, senior trips, I mean, senior skip day, graduation.
Right.
Well,
through all the years, they had pajamas day, they had backwards day, they had this, they had that, they had this. And this whole situation is stealing a generation of memories.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I wanted to thank you for coming on the show. What's the name of the Facebook page again?
So it's Nashua Parent Voice. You do have to be a Nashua parent because, we're sharing.
How do you verify that?
We ask questions.
Okay.
There's no scientific process. We're not hiring a forensic analyst to track
How
your
many
location.
administrators are on there?
There are about 8 of us, between 8 to 10.
And you don't go into the deep dives. Some people can get pretty low on social media and get really negative and that. So it's a way to.
So it's actually been a very, very positive group. I have to give every single one of the parents that's a part of it, kudos.
Right.
We have done a really great job at staying focused and staying positive, even in the most negative of situations. The blows for blows that we've gotten from the Board of Ed and their decision making, the one most recently, that was a hard one to swallow. But we've done a collectively really great job at not focusing on the people, and you don't see that that hatred, because that's not what we're there for. We're there to come together for the kids, and we're there to help our community. Right. Like you said, we have small businesses that are really suffering. We also have forced education displacement. We have parents that have to stay home because they have to advocate and teach their kids, because some of those accommodations with special education kids aren't being met. They have young kids. So this is affecting the community in a not just short-term way, but in a very long-term capacity. And I am absolutely terrified, if we continue to do this, how much more damage we could do, not just to our economy, but to our kids.
Okay, so the name of the Facebook page is?
Nashua Parent Voice.
Nashua Parent Voice. And and it's through Facebook. Is there an Instagram or anything like that?
We do not have an Instagram. If you have any questions specifically for me that you want me to pass along, you can email me directly at drowningparent, NSD. So NSD, Nashua School District.
One more time, because I interrupted.
drowningparentnsd@gmail.com.
Okay, great. And thank you for watching Speaking with the Senator. If you want to come on the show and share what you think about the situation or any particular situation here in Nashua, give us a ring. We'd love to have you on the show. We'd like to see this solved. We'd like to cooperate, with local people and to come up with some kind of a solution. So listen, until next week, thanks for watching Speaking with the Senator, and we'll see you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.